Welcome to Health Behavior Change and Nutrition Promotion. My name is Lauren Diapoli, and I will be your instructor. I'm currently a candidate for my Master's in Applied Nutrition at the University of New England, and this course design is my capstone project that I'm completing for my final semester. This is Module 1, and today I will be giving an introduction to motivational interviewing. We will discuss the principles, the spirit, and the foundational skills of motivational interviewing, and we'll also talk about how to engage in motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing can improve the doctor-patient relationship. It heightens the efficacy of patient consultations, and it can promote behavior change in a variety of healthcare settings. The principles of MI have been expressed with the acronym RULE, which is appropriate because these are the general rules that you'll want to follow when you're engaging with a patient who's showing resistance to making a behavior change for their health. We resist the righting reflex, which means we do not correct or argue with our patients. Correcting our patients or trying to tell them what to do when they're not ready to change can build their resistance to change. So obviously we want to avoid that. We understand the patient's personal motivations. We listen to them actively, and we hear their internal motivations and their own perception of their condition. And we empower them through a variety of positive reflections and summaries of their perceptions, their thoughts, their strengths, and desires. The spirit of motivational interviewing is compassion, collaboration, acceptance, and evocation. And I'm going to break down these components on separate slides. This is a form of compassionate, empathetic, client-centered therapy where we're acknowledging our patients' perceptions and thoughts through reflective statements, and we're verbally observing their strengths, their past successes, and highlighting their skills and abilities. Motivational interviewing is a collaborative, guided style of productive discussion. So we use this to assess the patient's perception by asking them open-ended questions. And it's really just a fluid process of interpersonal communication where the patient and us as the provider share one purpose. Motivational interviewing requires acceptance of the patients and where they are in their process and stage of change. We recognize and accept the patient's feelings and beliefs, and we honor the patient's self-autonomy. Using motivational interviewing, we understand and accept that a patient in any position of change is able to choose their own destiny. When we use motivational interviewing, we use open-ended questions to draw out patients' desires and reasons for making change. This evokes in them to explore their own personal motivations, and we collaboratively assess their understanding of their condition to promote their self-efficacy. Ultimately, they're the ones in the driver's seat, so they'll be making the conscious decisions to make change, so their own views will guide their reasons for change and will inevitably help them in their decision-making. Research indicates that motivational interviewing is particularly useful with patients who are ambivalent and unsure which direction to go, those who are struggling to change. So motivational interviewing is a way to really explore and resolve the patient's ambivalence and guide them along in the change process. This means, as practitioners, we should focus on guiding our patients towards the change, but not directing them or telling them what to do. As practitioners, we just appeal to the patient's internal motivations by asking them questions about their perceived advantages or what their perceived disadvantages are to making changes. And this helps people overcome barriers because they now built a personal case for making change in their own words. They've expressed to us why they have to make the change. The foundational skills of motivational interviewing are expressed by the acronym OARS. This is open-ended questions, affirmations, reflective listening, and summaries, as I've already explained. We'll go into that a little deeper. If a patient states something like, "It's too hard to change my diet," a reflective, clarifying, non-questioning statement can reflect the patient's views by saying something along the lines of, "You don't want to change your diet because it's easier to keep it the same." And that's basically restating what they've said in a more positive way. When we roll with resistance, we recognize that ambivalence is a normal human reaction. We acknowledge the resistance, and then it kind of loses its power. Together with our patients, we align to address the issue as a team. Another useful component of motivational interviewing is reframing statements. This helps us to put a positive spin on the patient's perception without disagreeing or belittling their feelings. An example of this is if the patient states, "I've dieted so many times and I never seem to lose weight." We can reframe that statement by saying something similar to, "Your previous efforts showed tremendous perseverance and you have not given up even when things were difficult." So this is a way to affirm the patient's positive qualities while we're reframing what they've already stated. Making affirmations regarding the patient helps to build a positive relationship and increase self-efficacy by making statements of appreciation of their strengths and the internal resources that they've displayed to us throughout our communication. So we focus on the person's positive attributes. If the patient explains that they cannot believe that they have high blood pressure because they hardly ever go out to eat and every morning they wake up and run before work, you can say something like, "Well, you're very dedicated to your health. You wake up every day and run, and you still find time to prepare your own meals." Using summaries and reflections, we can recap the major points of our discussion. But this is not just repeating what the client has said. We're using summaries to put weight on the patient's change talk. For example, you can summarize that patient session by saying something like, "So you told me you want to lower your blood pressure and you want to know how and what small changes you can make that will help you do that." Change talk is recognized when a patient begins to express an intention to change. Some ways that a patient may engage in change talk is when they say things like, "I will," "I can," or "I want to." Change talk can be explained by using the acronym DARN-CAT. Patients express a desire, an ability, a reason, or a need to change. And then they indicate a statement of activation towards change, like "I'm going to," "I already started." So we reinforce the patient's change talk and evoke their self-efficacy, which is really the primary goal of motivational interviewing. So to recap, applying the principles of motivational interviewing, we really want to just express empathy and roll with resistance. By reflecting and affirming the patient's perceived barriers to change, we become a team with a shared purpose. We help the patient see the difference between their goals and their behaviors by using reflective statements. We're not writing or correcting them. We always avoid argument and confrontation, and we encourage the patient to make their own reasons for change. We support their self-efficacy and their autonomy. Remember, the patient is the one who's going to be choosing to make a change, and we're just there to support that. Besides the readings and the assigned content, you're going to be completing a paper that's going to discuss the spirit of motivational interviewing, which you can take a look at in the module outline. And there's also an untimed quiz that you're going to complete this week. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for watching. Here are my references. Thank you so much.